Good evening. I'll now call the City of Cannon Falls City Council meeting for Tuesday, February the 19th to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Holst.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Mattson.
Here.
McCusker.
Yes.
Schobloom.
Here.
And Mayor Robinson.
Here. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City Council meeting on this brisk February evening. At this time, the chair will take a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
I'll second.
Motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Brings us to item 5 on the agenda this evening, public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the minutes, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing as there's no one that wishes to speak under public input, we're going to move on to item 6. This time, I'm going to be doing a proclamation for Resolution 2004 recognizing the Cannon Falls School Board. And City of Cannon Falls, Goodhue County, Minnesota, Resolution number 2004, resolution recognizing the Cannon Falls School Board. Whereas the City of Cannon Falls recognizes the importance of public education in our community, and whereas the City of Cannon Falls appreciates the vital role played by those individuals who, as local school board members, establish policies to ensure an efficient, effective school system. And whereas school board members serve as a voice that enables our community to preserve local management and control of our public schools. And whereas school board members are charged with representing our local education interests to state and federal government and ensuring compliance with state and federal law. And whereas school board members selflessly devote their knowledge, time, and talents as advocates for our school children. Whereas local school board members are strong advocates for public education and responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public and the public's expectations to the district. Now therefore it be resolved that the City of Cannon Falls recognizes and salutes the members of the Cannon Falls School Board by proclaiming February the 18th through the 22nd, 2013 as School Board Recognition Week. Adopted by the City Council of Cannon Falls this 19th day of February 2013. Just like to say thank you to the hard work that the school board does. I know there's with all the cuts and the all the money that's owed to them by the state, their job is not any easier by that. And a great thank you to them and for the time that they put in volunteering also as elected school board members for our school system. Also, while we're on that, I'd like to say thank you to, or congratulations to our girls high kick dance team winning the state Class A championship for the 6th time. So congratulations, girls, and all your coaches.
Thanks, Robby. I second that.
And that brings us on to item 7, the consent agenda. Items of this area of the agenda may be adopted or they may be removed and placed on the business area of the agenda for discussion purposes before approving. For the folks at home, I will read the consent agenda to you. Item A is the just and correct claims for the accounting period ending February the 15th, 2013. Item B, the meeting minutes for February 5th, 2013 City Council meeting. Item C, the Laserfish upgrade. Item D, 2013 City Administrator Salary Adjustment. Item E, application for payment number 7 for the library construction project. Item F, 2013 utility truck for Public Works. Item G, approve hiring a part-time license center employee. Are there any items anybody wishes to bring down?
D and F.
D and F. Okay, D will become item 8C, and F will become item 8D. With the exceptions of item D and F, Chair will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. And we will move on to city business, council business, the Little Cannon River Woodlands project.
In the agenda packets, I included kind of the general information on the proposed rural subdivision adjacent to the city of Cannon Falls. I tried to include a little history into the memo, but basically the city kind of reviewed this project and went through a pretty extensive process with it in 2007. At that time, the city was working through an annexation by ordinance with the developer. Towards the end of the process, it was determined that it would be better to try to work out an orderly annexation agreement with Stanton Township instead of doing it kind of just one-sided on our own. So the process was stopped with the orderly annexation, and then a process was started with the township for annexation agreement, and for whatever reason that really didn't go anywhere in 07 or in 2008. Back in late 2009, the project came back again. Staff met with the developer. That time explained that, you know, annexation, we're trying to do it the same way as far as an orderly annexation agreement, so that the developer should go talk to the township first. So that they did go talk to the township, and at that time the township decided that maybe it would be better if the project was developed in the township and not annexed into the city. So then at that point, I think the developer started talking with the county a little bit about what sort of zoning amendments would be needed. And once again, this is in 2009, 2010. It didn't really kind of go anywhere anymore, so it just stopped. Now it's back again for review. At this time, the developer is pursuing the project as a rural subdivision, working through the township and the county for any sort of necessary zoning amendments. When city staff looks at it, I think we look at it the same way that we would have in 9, and although we weren't here in 7, in a similar vein, that when you have any sort of housing subdivision that is close enough to the city to be realistically annexed and connected to city utilities, it really should be connected and done in that manner. We know, this council knows from experience, at least some members at least, as far as the Cedar Hills project and having to extend utilities and connect those homes to what was a rural subdivision. And this council is familiar with the homes that are across the street from the high school that we're dealing with now, that will be on an agenda here coming up real soon, because the same situation, a rural subdivision adjacent to the city. We do have a number of failing septics in this one. They can't replace their septics. They need to be connected to city utilities, but obviously just as with the Cedar Hills project, we have to extend utilities, we have to assess, we have to do all those sort of things to make it happen. So, really when you look at any sort of housing developments, if they're going to occur, they probably should occur within a city, and especially in a situation like this when it's adjacent to a city, it definitely would be staff's recommendation that we encourage the county to deny any sort of zoning amendments or changes, and that if the development wants to move forward, that it work with the city and the township on an orderly annexation agreement to make that happen. So, with that, we do have the developer here tonight. We actually have representatives from the county zoning director. We also have, I believe, some neighbors that maybe we want to discuss some things about the project as well. So we have plenty of people here to answer questions. There's probably a number of areas, as I talked about in the memo, that we could look at and say, well, we might have some concerns with location, access, any of those sort of things. But, honestly, those are things that will be dealt with by the county in their zoning process, because it's not in the city right now. So it's not really something that we can deal with those things. It's just more on our end, it's the fact that we should deal with those things, because I think a development like this should occur in the city. So what we're looking for tonight really is just from the council's direction on do we oppose the rural subdivision because of its location, and we'd like to see it work through an orderly annexation process to be brought in to happen. So that's what I'm focusing on as far as what we're looking at tonight.
Yeah, one question, I mean, where it is, I mean, there's the city, other people's land
Yep.
and stuff like that, so it isn't just,
Nope.
You
They would have to be worked out with adjacent property owners to
Right.
be able to have it annexed in.
so they'd have to be
Right.
also, I mean, because you're
Right.
not gonna leapfrog.
Right. Yep. And there's, a couple different possibilities of how that could occur, but, again, I can't say for sure what the interest is of adjacent property owners or any of those sort of things, but, again, it is reasonably close enough to the city that if, a project of this nature should be annexed in and connected. So really, that's, kind of all the comments I have as far as, general, information. And I know that the county is going to be doing a much deeper review of the project because it is in the county zoning jurisdiction, and they are the ones that are having to, will have to make some adjustments if it were to happen. But in this situation, the public hearing is coming up in March for the county, and staff is looking for direction on how to present any information at that hearing as far as the city's position on the project. So if the council has any questions for me, any questions for the developer, the county, neighbors, anything like that, I think now is a good time to try to maybe get some of those answered.
Does anybody have any questions?
Not questions, but more of a general comment. Whether this project is valid or not, realtors have told me different things. My concern, and Aaron touched on it, is we do not want another Cedar Hills. I do not want to put a future council in the position of the city having to annex something that's been done, subdivision done in the township, and then the city, in turn, has to turn around, charge assessments to these individuals, and also the cost of the city, as we found out through the Cedar Hills, is very expensive. The only way that I think that we can go forward and look at this is if he wishes to have this brought into the city along with additional land, so we don't do as Morris pointed out, the leapfrogging. That's the only way it's going to work. Otherwise, the city, at the end of the day, whether it's 5, 10, 20 years from now, is going to end up having to pay a lot of money, which the taxpayers should not have to do.
Yeah, I got a couple of things, Rob.
Okay, Leroy?
This is really hard. I've been on the planning commission now for 3-4 years, so I was around when this first issue all went out there. At that time, I think I was the only one that voted no on it at that time. The problem is I have with it is I've been on here long enough to have experience with this kind of stuff, and it's all good intentions, and it's about developing, it's about jobs, and it's about doing things, but it never seems to quite turn out that way for the city of Cannon Falls. In the end, it seems to cost us money. We seem to run into other problems. We got another development that went backwards on us that probably is going to cost us a lot of money before it's all settled and done, and water mains to nowhere and sewer mains to nowhere. The problem is I have with it is I don't want to annex because it just doesn't seem to work out well for us. The other thing is that I have talked to Aaron about other issues we've had before on different stuff like this, and I told Aaron I don't want to annex. Tell the Cannon Falls Township and Stanton Township start up their own suburbs. We'll take and feed the sewer main, sell you the sewer and water, but take care of it yourself. We have budget problems just like everybody else. If we add this development out here in 5 years, it's half going. We're adding more mileage to our snow plowing. We're adding another guy for maintenance to take care of this. One thing keeps leading to another. And nowadays, we're dealing with sewer and water structures in Cannon Falls right now that are outdated and need replacement. It used to be you put that stuff in and you got 50 years out of it, and now that don't seem to be happening. It seems like every 25, 20 years we're replacing surfaces, and then we have to decide if we're going to replace the sewer and water. So much of this stuff, it's not because I don't want to develop the community and I don't want it to go that way. If I had the ideal development situation right now, it'd be that land up by our high school. It would be such a great piece of land to develop for families. We could have a trail right from the school right to the development. So for me, as my being involved now for the last 4 or 5 years, I can't see that this works at all or that it won't cost us money. The other issue I have with it that I have concerns is that 3, 4 years ago, Mr. Griffith, and that is your right to do that, and we did that. You asked for an approval for a building out on the highway. At that time, I asked you, the state was going to buy it out anyway, why should we do that? And you felt it wasn't going to get bought out and you were going to build it. You told us 3, 4 months. That did get bought out. One of the other council members asked me at that time why I was against it, and I said because I think this is going to raise the valuation of the property, so when the state buys them out, they're going to have to pay more for it. And they said, what's wrong with that? I said, nothing. It's a free society. But that's the way it works. But I know I felt bad because I know then the state has to turn around and I pay my state taxes too, and that's the way it works. But at that particular time, I addressed that issue quite a few times, and you told me absolutely that that was not the situation. So I can't tell you that I want to wish you the best with this, but I do have a confidence challenge with some of our experience we had before. So these are my concerns about the whole issue. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess I'd like to hear from the neighbors.
Yep, come on,
Please.
Mr.
Well, thank you. I'm Dick Peterson, and my wife Jane are those landowners in between that you're talking about. And as Aaron says, there's good reason that rural subdivisions should be in the city. My contention is there's probably good reasons that agriculture should not be in the city. The county does have a really good feedlot ordinance to protect both sides of that equation. It probably would be almost impossible in Goodhue County, correct me if I'm wrong, to go build a feedlot today because of the spacing requirements. I think that should hold true on the other side, that then housing development shouldn't occur next to existing feedlot operations. We're fully permitted with the MPCA and all those things with the protections that gives us, but there are always compatibility issues between rural residents and farms. So that would be my perspective, that it's not ideal today, certainly, for our perspective, to have a housing development next to us. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick.
Thanks, Dick.
I'm Jack Lucking. I'm Dick's neighbor, just down the road. I have an apple orchard down in that area, and I'd like to keep my apple orchard and keep it ag area out there. I also worry about the turkey farm if the development goes in there. It's been talked about there's going to be horse riding and all this stuff, so I guess I kind of know where people will be riding. And I just don't think our town really needs another development. I'm worried about having a development go in and having it all torn up and have 2 or 3 houses sitting there. And we have a lot of that ugly stuff in Cannon Falls right now. I don't think we need more ugly, half-baked developments. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Anyone else? Any other questions for anybody else? Anybody else wish to address the council on the issue?
Maybe Jeff wants.
Jeff, you want to say a few words?
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, and by the way, I'm the engineer in this representing the owner, and I represented the other owner. The ownership team is not the same on the two developments.
Okay,
And so I want to clarify that. I own a civil engineering company. This is owned by a different ownership team than the other one. Okay. Secondly, I want to clarify, you know, when we came forward to you back in 2006 and 2007, and we're talking 170 to 180 units to do a development in the community. And we're also talking about extending sewer and water past the Petersons and past others. Keep in mind, to answer your question on leapfrogging, it's a kind of a unique property because we're actually contiguous to the city on the north end. But so there's really no formal leapfrog in annexation. However, the reality of where the sewer and water would come would be down 24, which we are not contiguous. And so it isn't technically a leapfrog development. But after we came forward with, you know, just under 200 units and doing a development in the city, we sat down with the neighbors and with the township and looked at it. And the layout that we're proposing in the township is 40 lots. You know, they're larger lots, and we're also looked at, in meeting with the Petersons, they had some concerns and didn't want lots butting right up to them. And so we agreed to have a buffer and put a pasture area and stuff in as a buffer to their turkeys. Also agreed to eliminate some lots that were too close to the turkeys in some areas where they had concerns. And lastly, we agreed to build some high fences, because I learned a lot in the fact that dogs and turkeys aren't compatible, and they have a lot of issues in running their operation too. And we took that into mind and ultimately came up with this proposal. We also were smart enough to know that even though we're a ways away from the city, probably $600,000 to $700,000 in dollars to extend sewer and water out there, someday it might occur. It might be down the road quite a ways. But so in working with the township and the county on this option, we came forward with an option where we were going to put the infrastructure in. The sewer mains are going to be in the road. We're going to have a community drain field. It's all going to run to one point on the south side of the property. So at the time, whenever it is, when sewer and water comes out there, it's simply you disconnect from the community drain field and hook up to the city. So kind of thinking ahead, so people aren't coming in 20 years from now and ripping up streets and putting sewer mains in out there. I think, based on the position of the property, I think it's a good compromise. I know the township really likes it. We had unanimous vote, both at the planning and zoning and at the board. As Mr. Peterson said, he's not for development. I think he would state that, and I don't want to speak for him, but the 40-lot subdivision versus the 200-lot subdivision, and having that buffer away from his animals is a better option. When I met with him and his family, they said it's something they could live with. I mean, I don't think they're going to support it, but it was something that they could live with. But with that said, the township really wants it. I think it would be good tax base for the township. I think it would be good for the school district. I think it would be good for the community. And with that, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
You mentioned about if annexation were to occur, saying it's not really leapfrogging. It really is. You would have to drive through the township still to get to there if it was to come into the city.
That is correct, but when I look at leapfrogging, there's state statutes that allow a city to literally do a leapfrog, Mr. Duncan. And in this case, it wouldn't be. We're contiguous. I think we have a quarter mile of frontage with the city on the north end.
Right, no, I
And
know
so we are
it's
contiguous with the city.
yes.
That's all I'm saying.
You also talk about possibly putting in some piping. You say sewer, I assume that means water also. The problem is, if you put that in now, which may or may not be city standards, if this development comes into the town in 15 years, standards will be different. We may have to go in there anyhow. You mentioned at Planning Commission last week that you would build to township standards currently for things like roads and that kind of stuff. Well, township standards is not city standards.
Correct.
And that's why I mentioned the thing with Cedar Hills. When it comes in, you're off the hook. The city is going to be, spending, possibly millions of dollars to upgrade streets, water and sewer, which may be at a different standard at that time. It's not good for the city.
I wouldn't expect a lot of these large lot subdivisions with cluster drain fields in them and infrastructure in the road. I wouldn't anticipate that you would convert from a rural section to an urban section when you annex it into the city. I would consider that you would keep with the rural section and not go back in and regrade it and build it with curb and gutter, would be how I would anticipate it.
I would
No.
disagree with you because that is what we are currently doing in our capital improvement plan in the city now, is to bring everything up to those type of standards with curb and gutter. And so this would fall in there if it came in to the city at some point, whether it's part of this process if the county denies zoning amendments. The other thing you mentioned at the Planning Commission is you're anticipating, because these are larger lots, I believe you quoted like $350,000 houses and $75,000 lots.
That's correct.
Is there a market for that? And there's a reason I ask. I live in a development in town here that is not full yet. I've been there almost 7 years, and that's the level of houses, in that $300,000 to $500,000 area, and we can't fill that up. Where's the market?
I think I don't know where you live, but this is a different market we're going after. As I indicated to planning and zoning, the market we're going after are these people that, there's a lot of people that maybe move out and think they want space, they think they want horses, they think different things, and then they get out there and realize that owning 5 to 10 acres is a lot of work. And in this case, we allow them to have those amenities, but yet they don't have the burden of mowing and maintaining a 10-acre rural lot.
But, okay, well, we can agree or disagree on that. It still gets back to me that at some point, whether you seek annexation from and I believe at the Planning Commission you quoted, whether it's 2 or 22 years from now, the city's going to have a big burden if we have to annex.
Why would you have a burden?
Because we have to put in all the city infrastructure. Millions of dollars.
On that, Bill, I thank you for bringing all that up, because it is a burden, and when you get done, I will explain why I think it's a burden. Thank you.
Well, and, like I say, it's a burden because I was here during this part of the Cedar Hills process, and it was very painful. We had a lot of angry citizens, very expensive, and the city is still paying for that. I do not want to see this happen with a rural subdivision right on our border. If you're willing to consider requesting annexation along with some other cooperative landowners, then that's something we can look at. But that's, to me, we can't do it that way.
Yeah, and we requested annexation before, and it was denied.
Yes, well, that was annexation by ordinance.
We petitioned either way, but
Well, there's a difference between annexation by ordinance and cooperative annexation.
I understand.
So Leroy, go ahead.
Go ahead, Leroy.
Well, the problem is you got with that is I've been involved in this stuff for 40-some years, and I've been involved in many development situations where everybody had the best intentions, put the right pipes in, put them in the right direction, I've been in developments where everything went out the back of the house and they had to go out the front. So they turned around and finally got smart and decided to stub everything out the front anyway. But as far as you doing any development for the future, I want to commend you to go to a central system rather than a bunch of small ones out there. But as far as planning for the city future, there's no way for you to do it. Whatever you put in there will not meet the standards at that time. I know that. And if it did get annexed, the city's going to have to come in and put the fire hydrants in and do everything else, the curb and gutter. And then we turn around and we're going to assess the existing property owners that are there, or how are we going to build all this out? And it always ends up to be a hot button issue. It always ends up to be a challenge. My suggestion would be is put in, if you're going to do this, work with the township, put in the cheapest, best well septic system you can, but don't plan on that it's going to be accepted someday if the city hooks up to it, because it'll never work. It's just the way that seems to go. The other thing I'll tell you is we had a good discussion I did with Aaron probably 2 months ago about the same issue. I told him I don't want to annex anymore because I'm fine with the size of the town. I want to take care of our town the way it is. And I said, if anybody wants to annex from now on, I want suburbs. I don't want any more annexing. Aaron said, it doesn't work that way. It's not that easy. He explained it all to me. But we get our monthly magazines about what's going on in the state of Minnesota, and there's a lot of challenges in small towns now that can't meet their sewage plant treatments and their well treatment qualifications. And other towns close to them are selling the water and sewer to them as a development and as a subcontract. So I know there's options to do that, and I might be open to that 15 years from now. But as far as developing this, we've got a very challenging budget in our city right now with our money we spent on sewer and water plants. We can't take any risk, and I see nothing but risk in this. Thank you.
Can you define developing as a suburb a little better, please? What you're thinking there?
The township should develop their own suburb.
Got it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
How's the county feel?
First, I'd like to introduce myself.
Yeah.
I'm Richard Samuelson, Goodie County Commissioner of this district. And with me tonight, Lisa Haney, our land use director, and our planner, Mike Wozniak. And yes, this, Aaron is right that this, the wheels are in motion as far as the county goes. I understand the Stanton Town Board has given its blessing, and it'll go to the Goodie County. It has preliminarily gone to the Goodie County Planning Commission, and then we don't know where it'll go there, and then it'll probably end up eventually at the county board. So that's one reason why I'm here, to hear comments. And but now I'd like to give Mike a chance to explain more in detail. Thank you.
Mayor Robinson, City Council, just wanted to clarify, we will be considering a preliminary plat for the Little Cannon Woodlands, as it's been proposed, at the County Planning Advisory Commission's March 18th meeting, 7 p.m. And they will consider what has been proposed to us as 12 residential lots, single-family home sites, and various outlots that would comprise the rest of the property, served by what I would bill as a community wastewater system, shared drain field, and shared wells. I would just briefly note that the county does have policies in its comprehensive plan that discourage the creation of what we bill as new rural multiple housing developments. What we mean by that is residential subdivisions. And we do have another policy that basically says municipal growth zones shall be protected from development beyond what is permitted in the urban fringe or growth zoning district in order to provide for more efficient development when annexation occurs. Now, what the County Planning Commission and the County Board will have to decide is there any provision in our A3 zone district, which is what the property in question is zoned, for this kind of development. Now, in our zoning ordinance, and I'll be very, very brief on this, we do have some language which says, and normally in our A3 zone, you have to have a minimum 35-acre parcel size to have a dwelling site. We do have a provision that says that there may be a waiver from that if it's served by a public or centralized sewage collection and treatment system. So the question is, well, would this meet that? But we also have another statement in our zoning which says that the lot area shall meet the minimum requirements for our R1 zone district, which would be 20,000 square foot lot size, or along the shoreland areas 40,000. If served by municipal sewage treatment system. So in other words, it would have to be connected to the city services if the city was willing to do that for property in the township. So those are basically probably the key issues that our Planning Advisory Commission has to sort out. Under any circumstances, would the county be willing to allow this subdivision to occur? The County Planning Advisory Commission discussed this in concept, I can't recall, Jeff, was it 18 months ago, something like that? 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And, you know, they basically kind of hashed over the issues, and I would say generally, in looking at my notes from that meeting, what they did is they generally said, hey, we don't think this is what our A3 zone was intended for. You can talk to the city about annexation, or you can propose a change of zone to our R1 zone. Problem with changing to our R1 zone is the setback from the feedlot is greater. It's a half a mile, and from the Peterson's operation. Whereas in the A3 zone, homes would have to be set back from 1,000-foot minimum from where the feedlot's measured from. So we have a few issues here. There are a few other practical issues about the layout that we'll address in our staff review and present to our Planning Advisory Commission. But that's probably the key thing. So certainly we welcome any comments from the city, and if there's a desire to come and testify at our Planning Advisory Commission meeting on the 18th, we would welcome that as well. Thank you. And if you have any questions.
Quick question for you. This is so cool that I get to meet with a zoning administrator or director or something. Because you mentioned that part about the 40 acres
yes,
for building lots. And I just wanted to make a comment on that. It was so funny to me back in the 70s and 80s. Did a lot of farming and business both. At that time, the 40-acre thing came into being to protect farmland. It was kind of ironic that all of a sudden they couldn't build where they wanted to, so they had to build on the far end of 40 acres, so they had to build from 1,000 feet from another building. And now they build a road right across the field and cut it in half. And I could see you shaking your head, but I kind of had to laugh to myself with the 40-acre thing because it just never seemed to work too well.
Let's put it this way. We've had these growth zones around our cities since the mid-90s, and very few folks have built on 35-plus acres because it's just not economic to do that. And in part, that was the intent, was to discourage building in those areas. But our county Planning Commission and Board have given us direction to phase out the A3 zones, and that'll probably be taken up later this year. We're going to do some notifications of property owners in our A3. The challenging thing is, especially around a city like Cannon Falls, is you've got some areas that, like in Stanton Township along Oxford Mill Road, where you have rural residential development, and you've got folks that might own 8, 10 acres that isn't built on, and they've got zoning that says they can't build unless they have 35 acres, yet they have dwelling sites all around them. And I'm talking about on the other side of the Little Cannon, not the east side.
Right.
So there's some challenges like that we have to sort out and figure out, well, what is the appropriate zoning? And this particular property would be another one.
Right.
Because it's not, you know, it has a little bit of agriculture, but it's not really an agricultural property.
Yeah.
So the question is, what's right for it until or unless the city's interested in annexing at some point?
Yeah, it was just interesting how we did that to try to hold back the sale of ag land, and we actually created more of a problem. So it's interesting, and maybe that's why guys like me are afraid to make a jump like this with something like he's got, because I've seen too many things lead to too many other problems, and somehow you got to be open-minded and move ahead, and somehow you don't forget the past either, so you don't know where to go. But thank you, appreciate it.
Do you
Certainly.
see other subdivisions that really, cause problems?
Well, there have been some. You have to realize that the county's been in the planning and zoning business since 1971. That actually first county comprehensive plan was 1969. That first plan, and actually the next plan in 1991, actually encouraged rural development and rural residential development, and a lot of it happened. So a lot of this stuff in Stanton Township and some in Cannon Falls and Township, and if you look at the eastern part of the county, like Wakuta and Florence Township, there was a lot of rural residential development in those townships. I mean, Florence Township has probably 1,600 residents. That policy changed quite a bit in 2004 when the current comprehensive plan was adopted, and the county really got away from supporting these rural residential developments. Now, I know we don't totally preclude them, but we very much discourage them in our current comprehensive plan. And so that's what the developer in this case is up against. And I know Stanton Township may have a little different take on this, and some desire to maybe add to their tax base, but it's not really consistent with the county's policies. Our zoning has a little ambiguity, as I mentioned, and that's really what we have to sort out when we formally consider this come March 18th with our Planning Advisory Commission. Any other questions for me?
No, but I have one for Aaron.
Thanks, Mike.
Talked about, when we talked about selling water to the new plant in Stanton, refresh me on why we could or couldn't do this, or how we could or couldn't do this?
Well, that was, it was more just a general situation that they asked. I mean, the city code precludes us from providing utilities outside the city limits. We'd have to amend the code. We'd have to make that, a real process and a decision if we want to do something like that. And that's why in this case, the business owner asked us, we said, well, we'll bring it to the Public Works Commission to see, but, it's really a tough thing for us to do. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It's always, a possibility that you can do that, but, right now, we couldn't do it unless we amended our city code and had to kind of go through a process to do those sort of things.
Okay, so it is a possibility that we could provide sewer and water to this without
Right.
annexation.
Yep. It's always a possibility. And what we've talked about is, the bigger issue with that then comes into, well, the reason we require annexation is, one, they're going to be getting city services. So in this situation then, besides utilities, obviously we're talking about, maintenance of the streets, snow plowing, police protection, all those sort of things that you would assume are going to be necessary for a housing subdivision. And that's why it's a different situation generally than, say, like a business. that's a, you know, a single entity that wouldn't have, say, a public street, you know, multiple residents, you know, potentials for fire, ambulance, police
Right,
calls, you
and
know,
this-
those sort of things. So,
And those sort of services, we could not provide without annexation, is
Right.
that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, so for the, like you say, ambulance or the police to come out there, or to maintain the
Well,
roads or snow.
my assumption is, I mean, if this did happen and it didn't get annexed in, if it was a rural subdivision and there was a, say, a 911 call, I would guess that our officers would be the first response before the county sheriffs got there. So I think we still would be responding. Ambulance would still be responding because it's within our area. Fire would still be responding within our area. But technically, they wouldn't be within the city, so they wouldn't be paying city taxes that support some of those things as a rural subdivision. So that does cause that issue too of city expenses on something where we're not getting that tax-based return on it too. So, you know, there's a number of issues with providing services outside the city, but, you know, in this situation, we look at it as an issue of, we're talking about a rural subdivision, a cluster of homes, which is basically a neighborhood adjacent to the city that will, at some point, require these services. And we will provide them, but we won't be getting that tax base to help cover that cost.
And as Bill mentioned, when whatever they build may or may not meet our standards when next annexation occurs.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as underground utility, water, sewer lines, I mean, we can't promise that. I mean, I know the roads, as they're, you know, designed now, wouldn't be city standard. I mean, we don't have curb and gutter, we don't have the same width. You know, this is more of a situation where it might look like, well, I'm trying to think, maybe Cannon Bluff's one, where it's a homeowners association where they have the narrow road. They've got those ponds, which we've had some issues with, and, you know, those sort of things. I think would be similar in that situation, where, you know, we really can't take those over because it's not up to our standards. So in the case that if we did annex, just as we will be doing, what we did with Cedar Hills, and then we will be doing with the homes across from the school when we get annexed, we're gonna widen those roads, put it in the curb and gutter, make them to city standards. You know, right now, they clearly aren't. And so we will have to do that. So yeah, when it comes in, you know, there's no guarantees as far as the actual, you know, underground infrastructure itself, but, you know, roads and things like that would have to be updated.
I got a question. The developer of this, has he done anything else like this in the state or any place?
I personally have not developed one like this. My company administers the septic code for Olmsted County, and we have put in a lot of interim developments in Olmsted County. We've approved them as a government authority. However, I was not the designer. I just reviewed them and approved them. Where they put in community drain fields. I've even seen them, one incident in Olmsted County where they had oversized lots, but they had covenants and they made them build the house on one half of the lot. So per se, at what time the annexation occurred, they could have the potential of splitting the lots in half and selling off the other half. But I personally haven't designed one, but I have proved numerous ones.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick one, Robby. I'd like to highlight on, whenever we've done this annexing and I've worked on it, it seems like most of the time it's Cannon Falls Township or something. But it always bothered me because we sit here with our budget, we got so many people to work with, so much tax base to work with, and we're trying to make our budget work around this all the time. I always felt bad when we did the Cedar Hills thing. I don't know how many houses and stuff we took off the Cannon Falls tax base. You got an employee, you got your trucks out there, you got everything set up for that many citizens to be paying into your tax base. And to no fault of our own, trying to work together, we ended up had to annex it, whatever. But that has to hurt the townships, and I always think about that too. I don't know how that works. It's like if Randolph came along and said, you know what, we're going to take the north end of town here. Okay, now we gotta figure out our budget with the less taxes coming in from the north end. So it isn't, to me, always about what's good for the city or whatever. It's also what's good for the townships, and maybe we need to look at this different instead of just saying this is the way to go. I think there's another way. I don't know what it is. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other comments, at this time, we need to take a council action tonight. I know you've all heard from this project was eventually brought forward in 2007, and they were asking for annexation by ordinance at that time, and that was denied. 2009, I know Jeff and myself and Aaron sat down, and he presented it to us one day, and we recommended it go back to the township for orderly annexation. We never heard anything else about it at that time, and then all of a sudden it pops up again. So at this time, the chair will take a motion for denial or support of the project.
I would like to make a motion to deny support to this project and request the county not to grant any zoning amendments to allow it to move forward, and further ask the developer, if he wishes to keep going, to check into orderly annexation.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Bill, seconded by Merle, to deny support of the project at this time and request that the county not grant any zoning amendments on allowing it to move forward, and if the developer wishes to move forward the project, that he go through it by asking for orderly annexation. Any other questions?
Do we have to put the part in there about the county? Can't we just deny it as a city? Bothers me a little bit that we want the county to deny it too. I don't really like that. That's their business.
We got the motion. I mean, you can,
Well, but the issue is that it's not coming before us for approval or denial because it's not in the city.
Yep.
But it is in front of the county for discussion.
Okay.
And so that's why we have to weigh in with
Yeah,
the
just so
county.
you know, I feel funny about doing that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm fine with denying it. I'm good with
Okay.
that.
All right.
But I don't want to give the county anything on that.
All right. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Support's denied. Thanks for all the citizens and the commissioner and the county folks that came in tonight. This time we'll move on to item 8B, which was brought down, which is the, well, it wasn't brought down, it was the other portion of the business, paperless agenda packet work session.
Yep. Just as, thanks. With the approval earlier on the consent agenda of our software updates that we've been talking about doing, kind of our baby steps in rolling this out is the council first. And we want to talk about this paperless agenda and how it will work and get your input on, what kind of system you like. So we wanted to have a work session, and we thought it'd be better to have it after the meeting so we have more time. We're going to try to get as many of the options for you guys to have to kind of use a hands-on with. I've got to convince my daughter to let me use her iPad mini, but we'll see how that goes. But we're going to try to have the different, regular iPad, iPad mini, some notebooks, netbooks, things like that, so you guys can all take a look and see, because what we're proposing can be used on any platform, any device. So we're going to leave it up to, I think, individual council members about, that's where kind of conversations can be, is what do you like, what do you feel comfortable with? That way we're not forcing one item, the same thing on everybody. We can let everybody kind of decide how they like to, access the information, and we'll demonstrate how you're going to be able to access it, how we'll get it to you, updates. We'll show you how you'll be able to, remotely pull up, the information you need for the meeting, how you can make notes on what you're doing, save those notes just like you're writing on a piece of paper, pull it up later, all that stuff. So we want to make sure there's enough time that you guys have a chance to, kind of have hands-on with it. So what we're saying is if we could do it immediately following that March 5th meeting to do that, that'd be great.
Take a motion to schedule a work session on the 5th.
So moved.
No, second.
Motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No. You forgot the discussion part.
2013.
Leroy's allergic to computers, huh?
Yep.
Do you want to just bring it up back and discuss it, Leroy? Okay.
No,
That moves us on to item 8C, the city administrator salary adjustment. Leroy, you brought that
bad
down?
enough night the way it is. Okay, so which one we on, D?
Item 8C, which is the city administrator salary adjustment.
Oh, okay. I think this is one of the worst council members I've had to be involved in, or meetings. It's all about negativity tonight, and I'm not good at that stuff. But anyway, you know, Aaron, I don't know, you gotta plug your ears or you gotta leave the room or something. I have to discuss this. I've been involved now for, I don't know what it is, 3-4 years, but I've been involved with all of our city staff at different times with different things. I've had them come to me when they didn't get raises and they didn't appreciate it. I've had them come to me and tell me when they signed up for our police department, at the time they signed up, they were supposed to get a $6,000 bonus after they've been here 5 years. And they wanted to know why they weren't getting it. I went through the lean years there where we cut the budget right down to nothing and nobody got any raises. I've gotten word from the Public Works when they didn't like things down there, and the one guy retired and we didn't have it in the budget to replace him, so they actually got cut back and we expected more out of the people. When we got our union negotiations down, basically, I think it came to a 2-3% raise. When these people come and talk to me about this, I don't care who they are, whether it's Aaron or them people, or they're all important to me. But I did listen to their issues, and I did bring it down to City Hall, and I told them their concerns, and a couple years ago, we almost lost Aaron. I think he's been a great administrator. I think he's done a hell of a job for our city. We almost lost him a couple years ago, and we had to make a decision at that time. Are we going to give him a raise and try to keep him, or are we just going to let this go and hire a new young person and hope everything goes good again? We chose the route to give him a raise at that time and some other benefits as far as being at home. And now this time around, when I read our packet, there was a 4.7% raise in there. And I can't truly honor the rest of our employees and say that I agree with that amount of money. I think our union contracts and everything else that came out was probably around 2, probably 3 at the most. And now we're voting for someone who is one of our top 8 people to get 4.7. I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to discourage it. I want everybody to vote whatever they think. But it does bother me. And I could vote for whatever the union got, 2% or 2.5%, but I can't vote for the 4.7. And I've got a little bit of Merlyce's problem tonight is I don't want to vote at all on this, like Merlyce did about a month ago, because it bothers me that much. So I guess I'll probably have to do the no thing again here. But Aaron, we've been very lucky to have you, but I don't feel right about this. Thank you.
Say, Leroy, I'd like to respond to that. You know, this came up as part of Aaron's review, and I think it was about 3 years ago that we had given you an additional boost above and beyond. The city administrator position is unique among all city employees. While I definitely sympathize with what you're saying about all our employees, because they're all important, Aaron's position is much different. He's in essence the CEO, and we're the board of directors. And in the personnel committee's opinion, it's important to reward your top guy. Even you have admitted he's done a bang-up job, and that's what the Personnel Committee has also agrees. As a Ken out there taking notes will note, prior to Aaron coming, the city was always on the front page of the paper, something going wrong or bad. Since he's come and had a chance to straighten everything out, it's just been so much smoother. There are other towns that are interested in having him, and someday we will probably lose him because he's going to want to advance his career. But for now, I believe in rewarding the top dog, as it were, because he has to oversee everything within the city, and that comes at a different level than some of the others.
Wow, Bill, now you really stirred me up. Because I would argue a little bit that Aaron's done a bang-up job, but we've also made his life easier. We've hired more people. We got more people in that office than we've ever had before.
I might have to correct you on that. Leroy.
Yeah, you might have to, but I also know when we do have crisis around here, Linnell does a heck of a bang-up job of keeping things running. So whether the police chief's job is important or Tom Bergerson's or Aaron's, I look at them all the same. I don't, and I don't like the CEO thing. He's our manager. If we're going to run a company here, this is a whole different ballgame. So when these employees came to me in their last negotiation, when he got his raise and said to me, how is it fair now? We couldn't get a raise this year, but he did. I couldn't answer that. But I'm speaking up to it tonight because I really don't.
Hold it, Leroy. There was the year of the hard freeze. Nobody, including Aaron, got a raise.
Nope.
No, there were no raises that year.
After Aaron got his raise that spring and stuff or whatever. And no, you know, I just want to point out my points. I'm not trying to cause trouble here. But I'm just saying is that I can't vote for it where it's at. Okay?
Okay. Any other discussion?
I agree with Leroy. And I believe it was Robby that said, in all our budget talks, it's time for department heads to step up. And he's the department head. I don't think we're not giving anybody else that big a raise.
He's not a department head. He's the administrator.
He's not head of the administration department?
No, he's the head of the whole city as far as the city management goes. He's above the department heads.
Well, I don't believe that he deserves that big a raise.
Okay. Well, okay. Any further discussion?
So if we vote on this and vote no, are we voting against it completely, or can it be revised at a different number?
I could live with the same number as everybody else got.
Well, we'll have to vote this part, and if it doesn't go through, then we'd have to renegotiate it and go from there.
Okay.
I will make a motion to approve that salary adjustment.
A motion by Bill.
I'll second.
And a second by Rod. All those in favor?
Aye.
How many ayes?
4.
4 ayes. Opposed?
No.
No.
2 noes. Passes.
Oh, Merlyce, we did a heck of a job on that one.
It's always fun to be on the other side of that stuff.
Okay, at this time, we'll move on to item 8D, which is the purchase of the 2013 utility truck for Public Works. And Leroy, you brought that one down also?
Yeah, the reason I brought that down, I would like our administration and our council and stuff to look at things a little bit different when it comes to this kind of stuff. And the reason for that is that there's 50-some thousand here that we need to spend on this truck. The reason we need to spend it is it should have been done 20 years ago. This truck is important for our lift stations, our sewage lift stations around town. I called up and talked to Tom about it. The guys have got a portable tripod now they have to set up two people have to manually pull these things. It's a terrible job. It's a safety issue of two people working around a manhole. So I can see such an advantage to this truck. But the problem is I have with it is with all this equipment that we need, it's always the problem is our sewer and water bills are so high now. So I see the expense of this truck. And yeah, the staff did a good job of putting the money away for this. But I also think about our sewer and water charges and what could we do to try to get them down. And the first thing I thought of was, is there any way we can buy a truck for $25,000 and put the $25,000 in the sewer and water funds trying to keep them down? The example I would give you is that we're no different in the townships in some way. We got to have a certain amount of snowplows and trucks and all this stuff. We can't get out of it. And some of this equipment, this truck in particular, would probably take care of pulling 500 pumps a year. But we're actually going to pull them about 5 to 6 times. So we got a very expensive piece of equipment here for safety reasons and everything else to pull these pumps. And it isn't getting used that much. And we're dividing this expense over 4,000 people or whatever our population is versus a suburb that's got 20,000 and they only need 1 truck. So it's an expensive item to add to the sewer and water fund that we already got. So the fire department down there, when I first got on the council, they came to me and said that they wanted addition to the fire hall, and for safety and for our town, we really needed that ladder truck. And they told me that they would like me to do what I can to help work with them on that. But I said to them, I said, wow, how do you spend $1.5 million on a building and $1.5 million on a truck? And how is a town of 4,000 supposed to pay for that? And they said, well, that's just the cost of safety. Well, I said, I know, but it really doesn't work out well. So we talked about it a couple weeks later, and I said, go find a used truck. And they said, wow, are you nuts? You can't find a used ladder truck. I said, you techie people today love that internet so much, go on there and look up trucks and see what you can find. And I said, we get our magazines all the time through the city of Cannon Falls, and I said, you got fire truck salesmen coming down there. Tell them you want something used. And they said, well, you wouldn't get it certified. And I said, well, I don't know. What do you mean? Well, you wouldn't get it certified. So anyway, it was left at that. They called me a month later and said, hey, we found one out in Pennsylvania. And I said, wow, what'd you find? And he said, well, a used truck. You said to get a used one. He said it had low miles and they trade automatically every 2 years. And he said, this one's $750,000. Well, I said, I thought you said it had to be certified or something. Well, yeah, or we got a hold of our salesman and he said he can get it certified if we have to. So anyway, make a long story short, we talked about holy bucket, $750,000. I think a new one was $1.2 million, and I was wondering, I didn't really like either one of them numbers, but are we going to invest this much money? Maybe we should just buy a new one then if you're going to spend that much. So it didn't get done, and another 6 months went by, and all of a sudden, one of the firemen called and said the people that sell this kind of equipment got a hold of us and said, somebody up in the cities is trading, and we got a heck of an opportunity to pick up this truck. My point is on that, it worked out really well for us. We ended up, I think, with less than $500,000 in something, and it's actually got a value to it. We could sell it for more than it's worth today. So on this particular truck, I talked to Tom and said, is there any way we can go with a tripod winch on the front of our loader tractor? What's another approach we could do to get at this thing for $10,000, $25,000 instead of this $50,000? Or could we go to a used truck? I watched the resource magazine we get, and there's always used boom trucks and used equipment in there, and some of them are Excel Energy that trades every 2 years. So I guess my first thought on this, I definitely feel we need it. I definitely feel it's a safety issue. But I'm wondering if we really need a new one, if we could take some time and just look into use and see if we'd have any options. That's just my suggestion on this.
Well, when we looked at it, you know, Tom's done a pretty good job. The truck that he wants to replace here, you know, we've dragged well past its normal
Oh, it's
useful
terrible
life.
how long we've let this stuff go.
And you mentioned the safety factor, which was a consideration for Public Works Commission. And you had mentioned earlier about, you know, Public Works being down a man that we didn't replace. Of course, this helps, because as you pointed out before, it took multiple people to lift these things out. And you know, could you look at a used one? Maybe. But it would just like when you look at or buy a used car, you're never quite sure until you've bought it and start using it what you're going to have.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Bill.
And the comment about a larger city using it more, this will also enable us to have a longer life, because it will get, you know, it won't be used as much over time as you would in, say, a larger city. So the replacement down the road will be, you know, we can push it out a lot longer.
Aaron, was this built into the budget, into the fund?
Yes.
Yep, we've had it in the capital improvement plan for a while. So when we take a look like water and sewer rates every year, this has been in there for, I don't know, well,
I think it's been there for a while, hasn't it?
4 or 5 years
Yeah, I was
probably.
going to
it's been
say
in there.
something like that.
And we haven't replaced it since then. We've been pushing it out and pushing it
Right,
out.
we just kind of keep pushing it around, but I mean, we've been setting some money aside within the water and sewer funds, like when you look at our rates, and that's all taken into account already into this. So the money's there to do it. We've already talked about
I mean, I know the
that.
fire department's done the same thing with a lot of their vehicles. They pushed them out, and
Right.
police
Oh,
have
yeah,
pushed a couple of them out.
we definitely maximize our vehicles to the very end, and replace when we really have to. That's correct.
Yeah, all our departments are doing pretty good on that, so.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I would like the city, though, next time to think about some other alternative, and instead of just waiting till the last minute, now we got to do it. Maybe the last year we could, somebody could be on the internet looking at different things, looking at different options.
Well, maybe that's something we can mention to all our departments,
Yeah.
Public Works,
Exactly.
Police, Ambulance, that they be a little more proactive on looking out.
And the thing is, our sewer and water budget is what drives me nuts. If that wasn't going up so much the next 7 years, we've just got, I mean, we only got about 5 years before one of our big bonds drops off or something. So it just concerns me, these sewer and water charges we have to raise over the next 7 years. So whatever staff can do to help us with that, we need to think about that.
And as we start earlier this year on the budget, I think, you know, that's the one way that we can start looking at it to see what else we can do, you know, for next year, for that, is to start early, and see where we can, you know, what we can do on that, if possible. I mean, but if we keep adjusting it and taking stuff off this year, then next year it's going to have to go higher, and then the next year go higher till those things get paid off. I mean, those are things that were built before we all became a council, and unfortunately, and it was built on speculation of growth, and
No, it ain't there.
right, it's not there, but in the long run, if you think about it, we're in a lot better shape than others, and unfortunately, we're paying for it now until such time as it gets paid off.
I got to tell you a little story, though, when I was listening to Bill about less people. When Tom and I talked about this, I asked him about a boom on the loader tractor. And I could see that working good, but when I thought about it, I thought, well, that'll take an extra guy. Now we got to pay an extra guy. But then I also thought about, wow, I don't ever want one guy working on a manhole alone. If you got a 30-foot manhole and you're pulling equipment out of there, I want 2 or 3 guys there. So then I told Tom all my concerns, and Tom's first response back to me was, if we get a weekend call and something happens, he said the guy can go in and that truck is stocked and that truck is ready to go and he can take care of it. Oh, I said, wow. I don't ever want you sending out one guy on these manhole recovery stuff. And he said, I'd never do that. I said, well, what the hell did you just say to me? So we both had a good laugh over that one.
Okay. Okay, if there's no further discussion, the chair will take a motion to approve the purchase of the 2013 utility truck from Polar Chevrolet in White Bear Lake and ABM Equipment in Hopkins, as recommended by the Public Works Commission.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, that brings us to reports. Mr. Maroney.
Two quick things. One is the EDA will be meeting March 6th, the first Wednesday of the month, as opposed to the second Wednesday of the month next month. And Jay, if you've got just a couple minutes after the meeting, I'd like to talk to us. That's all.
Okay. Brenda?
I just have a couple quick things I wanted to bring up. First of all, thanks to Leroy. I don't begrudge Aaron anything he gets for his position. I would not take his position for any amount of money. But one thing I would want to say, and I thank you for saying it, Leroy, is one thing that I recognize in all the rest of our positions, that one thing that happens in negotiations or doesn't happen in negotiations is I don't think that I've ever heard the word merit mentioned in any other employee negotiation. And I think were it to be mentioned, there's a lot of other people in the city who would see a much higher increase in their salary than they currently get. I know there's employees that are working under me whose evaluations would reflect a much higher level of pay raise than what they currently get, just based on what budget restraints allow if it was based on merit and what their employee evaluations reflect. And so I thank you for your words tonight, Leroy. The other thing I need to do is publicly thank some people from the ambulance department, the fire department, and the police department who surprised me at our ambulance training the other night with a gift and some recognition to me for some service that I've done, and also the bakery for providing some cake as well. And I'm amazed that you all were able to keep it quiet that long from me and my sister for helping you do so. And it was very much appreciated. You all, my public safety is my second family, and I greatly appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Chief?
No one told me there was going to be cake. I would have been there. I have nothing.
Aaron?
Well, thank you for the adjustment. I appreciate that, of course, and I look forward to, obviously, continued service with the city. So I definitely appreciate it. Thank you.
You still going to answer my calls, Aaron?
Maybe not right away.
Merle?
I have nothing.
Nothing.
Bill?
Just to say, now, Aaron, you can't leave, so.
No, you're stuck.
You're stuck. I'm done.
Okay. Leroy?
You know, I got a thing tonight that just gives me the creeps to even tell you guys about it. It's really an emotional thing. I got to quit going off at this council, I know that, because at the last one I went off about that I don't appreciate how the State Department is handling things. And I talked about our crossings at Twin Rivers and our crossings down at the ball diamonds. I got home that night and the phone rang, and a friend of the family got hit down there. Mm-hmm. So it really hit home now. It's a little bit of a little pissed off myself that I didn't do enough. You know, I also know that things happen. I can't solve everything, but boy, that baby hit home. Thank you.
Thanks, Leroy.
Is the individual okay?
They're going to be okay, but wow, they really got banged up, and she's an elderly lady, and
And we did take that police report and forward it to Senator Schmidt as a, hopefully another incentive to get MnDOT to, you know, maybe get a little, well, at least give us a response, but moving on a little bit faster. So we did pass that along to the senator, and he's gonna use that as a way to help us get that crosswalk in as soon as possible.
And I'm talking to a few other people up there right now about that. I mean, we were sitting here talking about it when that happened. So, I mean, we know there's a need, and we need to push MnDOT. You know, they work for the community just like we do as city council members, and like everybody else, and they need to be responded to some of these issues because it's a safety concern, just like everything else, just like pulling things out of the manholes. It's a safety concern, and the safety of our citizens and their well-being is something that needs to be addressed, and MnDOT's got to quit, you know, acting all high and mighty and respond to some of these things in a positive manner instead of always saying, no, we can't do it. They got to start saying, yes, we can, and we can get this fixed.
one thing I did hear is that the person that's in charge, I'm not doubting them at all, the responsibility and problems they got, but I did hear that the person has been there a long time and is going to retire this year. And that might be a good thing because maybe the person needs to retire, and maybe it is time for some new blood. I would also, I forgot, Robby, Aaron, I forgot to mention too, in this same situation is, to bring this up when you're thinking about the Highway 19 thing is, Twin Rivers got a hold of me about a year ago, and I'm sure I brought it to you. They have a problem when they get an ambulance call down there because the driveway ends up blocked. If they get residents in there, everybody's blocked in. So if the ambulance run takes 45 minutes, nobody can get in or out. It is a safety concern. They did talk to me about that they would like to build a road where the sidewalk is all the way down to the other end so the ambulance could loop in, go down the sidewalk, and go out the other end. Their problem is with that, they went to the state of Minnesota and said no. So it's another one of those no things that I keep running into. So talk to Twin Rivers and keep that in mind too, will you?
Leroy, I was going to mention, and Aaron, I'm sure you or Dave will be there next Thursday at the chamber breakfast. That particular incidents should be mentioned to those MnDOT folks that are going to be here for that, on both the interchange and the Highway 19 project.
Yeah, and I forgot to do that. I want to recognize Robby for his great speech on State of the City. Thank you.
Thanks. Jay? I'd just like to say, again, as I mentioned in the State of the City address the other day, I did mention and say thank you to every city employee here in the city of Cannon Falls. Our employees are what make this city go. You know, it's the folks up here on the council, you know, we can sit up here, but we listen to their concerns and everything else, and we go with what we've got to work with to make the best decisions. But it's those people that really make our city what it is. You know, it's the fire department, the police department, our ambulance crews, our EDA, our public works, our parks folks. All those folks are the ones that make the city what it is, and a great place to live. And they don't hear thank you enough from us, but again, I want to say thank you to them for the job that they do for the city of Cannon Falls and for our citizens. And with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
See you, bud.